Here. Present.
Okay, and Andrew may have just walked away. We'll give it a minute just so we can officially have a quorum.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
I just had I have a flight. I was supposed to go to Hungary in a couple of weeks, and somebody just called me from Poland to let me know that my flight was canceled. Shocker.
All right. Andrew is also here, and we have a quorum to continue. The first item on the agenda is the consideration of the meeting minutes of October 1st, 2020. I'll entertain a motion, a second, and then we'll have a discussion.
So
Moved.
Moved by, I think I heard Andrew Bramson. A second?
Second.
Second by Bryant Estrada. Any comments, questions on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Ugo, are you an aye as well?
Yes. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. I am also an aye. The motion carries. The meeting minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the district budget. Kerry is, we think, in transit to his home where he will join us for the meeting. What we're going to do without objection is just move on to item 5. And then when he joins us, we will have a discussion around the budget. Is that okay with everyone? Great. So Superintendent, I'll turn it over to you for item 5 under item 5A under new business.
Great, thank you. And is that toggling through some screens? The homeschool applications, is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Great. So we do have 3 more families who have expressed preference to homeschool. Though the trend continues, these are not families leaving Central Falls. They're either transitioning from a different school, or in one case, moving in from another community and preferring in this unique context to homeschool. So my recommendation would be to approve all of them.
Great. So why don't we, I'll entertain a motion to approve, a second, and then we'll have a discussion.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Andrew Bramson, seconded by Brian Estrada. Okay, now any questions for the superintendent on the homeschool application?
Sorry, I was the one. That was Ugo. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. Ugo, you were the second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian. So the motion was made by Andrew Bramson. It was seconded by Ugo Figueroa. And now we are in discussion. Andrew, I saw you put your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question for the superintendent. Obviously, I'm not surprised by these, but my sense is that, or hopefully that these are more temporary homeschool as opposed to what we usually see, which is more of a permanent or longer term. Can you talk a little bit about how, what the district can do to sort of support these families who are sort of doing this as a short-term, maybe a stopgap mechanism, as opposed to something a little bit more long-term and philosophical? And how is that sort of different to make sure that when these students, hopefully when they come back to the district, that they're back to sort of being with their peers socially and emotionally as well as academically?
Thank you for those questions. Great questions. We actually, it's interesting, have more options to offer families who are expressing interest in homeschooling than usual, in that we both have virtual options pre-K to 12 within the district, as well as the statewide virtual learning academy that is supporting about 23 of our students currently. So we have shared with families that they could do those options, but in these situations, the families feel strongly that they want to homeschool. And so I'm actually not sure that these will necessarily be families who would be in district even if it wasn't a pandemic, simply because of either geographic shifts. That's most often the reason that we're hearing people homeschool. or prefer to homeschool. So while I will keep a close eye on that trend, I don't anticipate that this will be a situation where there are students who will then come to us and have some disjointed, like discontinuous educational experience.
Thank you for that.
It's certainly something we're interestingly watching a trend statewide. So as the superintendents, it's one of the things we update each other on regularly, and many other districts are seeing a steeper spike in homeschool applications, but that is not the case yet. It's high for us, but certainly not in the numbers. We're still, under 10 families who have made that choice.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, the motion was made by Andrew Bramson, seconded by Hugo Figueroa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, I am also an aye. The motion carries. The homeschool applications are approved. Thank you. Thank you. I know that it's part of our process that you bring those to us, but it sort of allows us to have a conversation, especially as we see that trend is shifting a little bit given the circumstances. Carrie, thanks for joining us. Now that you're with us, we're going to go back to item 4, which is the Central Falls School District budget, for you to walk us through. Well, I guess item 4A is a consideration of bills, grants, and general budget. I know Sonia, who is usually our liaison on that, isn't here. Superintendent, do you think it's appropriate to table item 4A until our next meeting to give Sonia an opportunity to be here to sort of?
We certainly could table it so that she can weigh in if there was anything flagged. We did send over a packet of bills a few days ago, but with another meeting in 2 weeks, I think that would be just fine.
Okay. Why don't we vote to table item 4A? Motion to table item 4A, consideration of bills, grants, and general budget.
So moved.
So moved by Hugo Figueroa.
Second.
Seconded by Brian Estrada. I'm sorry, my name. I'm getting my names all twisted. Any discussion on that or questions? All right. All those in favor? I am also an aye. Item 4A on this agenda will be tabled until our next meeting on November 5th. Thank you. Item 4B is the FY21 budget review update and discussion. And that I will turn over to Carrie and/or the superintendent.
Thank you. Superintendent, would you just like me to go?
Sure, and meanwhile, I will start sharing your slide.
No problem. Thank you. So good evening, Madam Chair, fellow board members and Central Falls community. The update from Central Falls at this point in time, we still do not have a budget as provided by the state for our district. Nevertheless, we are able to pay our bills on time. We're able to make payroll, and I believe we are in a good position. And the reason why I say that is for a number of reasons. One is that our supplemental aid request, Central Falls was allotted $1.8 million for the COVID relief funds. We applied and our approval came through as a final approval as of yesterday. And so now we could submit bills, i.e. for PP&E, those are, our sanitary supplies, as well as our Chromebooks that have been delayed due to no fault of our own, but now we actually have guaranteed funding for it. So we're able to submit those bills of that 1.8. When I put this slide together, we had about $200,000 for the ESSA funds because the CARES Act, let me go back, is broken down into 3 categories: COVID relief funds, the ESSA funds, and the governor relief funds. So I just spoke on the COVID relief funds. The ESSA funds, which don't have to be spent until December of 2021, We actually have locked up that $1.5 million as of today. After talking with the director of operations and him instructing me or informing me, either way you want to look at it, that we needed to get some HVAC work done, we're able to lock up that 1.5, and now I can submit that application as well so that we can start that work. So I go back to saying that I think we're in a pretty good position in spite of not having a budget, because our main needs right now, at least in my eyes, in terms of us being safe, being able to fight a virus that we don't necessarily know about, at least to mitigate it. We have over $3 million that are earmarked just to maintaining safety, sanitary conditions, and what we need to have within the district. So I'm thankful to the superintendent for her vision for that, as well as to RIDE for providing us the funding that we needed, as well as, I'm not sure if it's in Stephanie's update later on, we were awarded some additional funds for capital improvements today, so at about 215,000. So
I do want to just mention, I got excited and Carrie was about to share it until I saw it still says draft. So it will get an official vote soon from the state, but we think they're coming.
yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Don't mean to jump the gun, pull the trigger too fast.
No, I even put it in the board folder. We pulled it out when I realized.
Yes, ma'am. And the governor relief funds, we don't know what that's going to be. Only thing that we know is that we're hoping that those funds will be distributed to the district as well as other districts. My guess is post-election in 2021. Our annual audit was completed today at about 3:59 p.m., at least in draft form. They're still waiting for some information from the state, but as far as what they needed from the district, we provided our auditors all that we needed. So I expect us to have another successful outcome from our audit. And again, keep our eyes on the prize, so to speak, that by the end of the year, we want the district to be allotted the 46 million that the district was, that the district is due. And again, that's pending federal funding. And we may not get to the 46 million in all transparency, because economies are hit nationally and worldwide. But one thing I can say as of right now, going back to it, is that RIDE has provided to Central Falls a good portion, even allocating finances from other districts who weren't using it for the COVID and for the ESSA funds. So that's my update as of this moment.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Any board members have questions or comments about Carrie's presentation? Carrie, I have a quick one. And of course the governor, you mentioned the governor relief fund and that it's sort of to be determined. Do we have a sense for what the amount might be, like a range or yeah.
Unfortunately, not at this moment. It hasn't even been determined how those funds will be allocated. I would say based off of precedence, it probably will be according to the Title I allocation, the similar way that they did for the COVID relief funds and for the ESSA funds. But even how those funds, the allowable expenses that would be able to be used against those funds, we're not sure of yet. We just know that there were 3 buckets that were provided to the state, and that's the governor's call in terms of when that will be released.
Great. And you mentioned that the audit is currently in draft form. If there's an opportunity, Dr. Toledo, for you to bring a final audit to the board in a subsequent meeting, that would be great for us to take a look at and have a discussion on. Thank you. Other board members, comments, questions? All right. Thank you, Carrie. Is that it?
That's it from me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We had also skipped another agenda item that I didn't notice. Thank you, Dr. Toledo, for flagging it. Item 3, consideration of personnel actions, including any new appointments, layoffs, rescissions, resignations, recalls, and retirements. We all received Dr. Toledo's HR memo, or really Patricia's HR memo. And I'll entertain a motion to approve. We'll second, and then we'll have a discussion.
So moved.
So moved by Brian Estrada,
Second.
seconded by Andrew Bramson. Now we're open, now we're in discussion. Any comments or questions from the board? My only question, I haven't seen this many PCAs be hired at the same time, and wondering what drove the need, unless I just haven't noticed. But it seems like we have a bunch that we're hiring at the same time, and so just wanted to see like what was the cause, or what are we seeing that's requiring us to do that?
Great observation and great question. So this is actually ties back to last year when we were in a hiring freeze. And so there were new needs that were being added to students' individualized education programs. And because of the state laws around deficits and not being able to hire, we were filling those needs. We were meeting the mandates, but with substitutes. And so we're now able to be bringing people into full roles that, you know, are in the Council 94 union. And so we're excited to be making these official members of the team, but it's not that there was a certain, you know, sudden spike in adding PCAs to IEPs or anything just this year.
That's good. That's good clarification. Thank you. Anything else that you want to walk us through on the memo? I see we have a new AP, a new principal.
Yes, we're very excited to be putting all these names in front of you, and it's been a long journey, but I think well worth it for hiring for many different roles. And I have a slide in my update to go into it a little more, but we're just really excited to be presenting an AP for Calcut, a principal for veterans, all of these personal care attendants, a teaching assistant, and another school nurse. So we are making a lot of progress towards the staffing needs that we started the year with, and with excellent team members that we couldn't be more thrilled about. And hopefully by the November meeting, just 2 weeks from now, we'll have even more, because there are a few in the works right now. So we're getting very close to being fully staffed.
Great.
Do we have oh, sorry.
No,
I was
go
gonna say, do we, I know it says to be determined for the nurse, I guess the nurse placement. Do we have any idea where we're leaning towards right now?
So great question. So we hire the nurses into district-wide roles quite intentionally. And so because of the decision to bring our youngest students in person for various reasons, we have shifted nurses to those 4 buildings that are open. However, my understanding is that this new team member has a strong preference to go to Calcut long-term. So I think that will likely be the placement. We were excited about her interest in middle school, but we keep the option to be able to move nurses around along with a few other roles that are hired into district-wide, even though they will eventually have more of a home in one school.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. The motion was made by Brian. So it was seconded by Andrew. All those in favor, please say aye.
One more thing, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep, go ahead.
Something to note. So Emily Santelices Ramos' last name was spelled incorrectly. So if that can be fixed, just for.
I am in the shared doc now and can fix it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for walking us through that document. The next item is public comment. And so what we'll do is that for those of you who are attending the meeting today, I see that there are about 82 of you. If whoever wants to provide public comment, if you could add your name to the chat. Seeing none, I just want to make sure that people have the functionality available to them, correct? Michael, sorry, just want to confirm.
I believe,
I think so, because if we see it, then folks must have the functionality to do so. I just want to double.
it looks like, so we are getting two messages, thank you, from two teachers who are telling us it's disabled, but they're using the Q&A. So as an alternate tonight, there are names being entered there.
Okay, great. Give me a quick second. I'm just going to look there. Thank you.
Mr. Mara says that it's now enabled.
Yep.
All right, so if you want to provide public comments, please do so either through the chat function, and if you've already added your name to the Q&A, I already have you down. Okay. All right, so the first person is Jessica Parker.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I got like bumped out earlier, so I wasn't sure if I was in the right spot. My name is Jessica Parkhurst. As you all know, I am currently the 234 self-contained full distance teacher at Veterans Elementary School and a graduate of Central Falls High School class of 1999. While the number of positive COVID-19 cases continue to rise in Rhode Island, making us, as of today, the only red state in the Northeast, and Central Falls continues to top the cities reporting new cases each day, I am more compelled tonight to speak of something less doom and gloom. In the last, oh, are you there? Oh yeah, okay, sorry. In the last 7 months and 9 days, each passing day has come with its share of ups and downs. As time passes, the downs seem to be outweighing the ups. But tonight, in this moment, I want to share the ups, the moments that in the dark always bring the light. 7 months and 9 days ago, my colleagues and I said goodbye to our students and told them we would see them again after an unexpected April vacation in March. We never returned to our school buildings again until September, but we saw our kids again. We saw them in Zooms or Google Meets, but we saw them again. Superhero headquarters was reassigned to my living room, but our mission was the same: be respectful, learn, try our best, and have fun. And the new one, mute your microphone. As is always the case, our superheroes rose to the challenge, and I have been happy to scream it far and wide: mission accomplished. My students were successful. Crisis learning was challenging for all of us, but we did it. Families stepped up and stepped in, to support our superheroes, and we made it work. Every Friday, I was thrilled to deliver small prizes to each of my superheroes for all their hard work throughout the week. When the principal requested the name of a star student each week, I was proud to send her every superhero's name because they were showing up and they were working, even when it was hard. Even when their mom or grandma or other family members were really sick with COVID, they were still showing up because that's what superheroes do. Over the summer, they were in contact with me just to say hi and to tell me about their days. I always say superhero headquarters is like a family. But let me tell you, this spring, we were closer than I could have ever imagined. The family engagement was what teachers dream of. We were connecting all the time, all times of the day. Being flexible and understanding was key. Families knew their health and safety were my first priority. Our conversations always began with, how are you doing? How's everyone feeling? Do you need anything? I truly believe that it was this mindset that set the tone for a truly remarkable end of the school year, despite the uncertainty and chaos of the world around us. It is now October 22nd of a new school year. Superhero Headquarters has some new members along with our veteran heroes, and we are once again tasked with a mission to be respectful, learn, try our best, have fun, and mute your microphone. We were faced with having no Chromebooks, but that didn't stop us from being super. Some families were able to get their own Chromebooks. Some families were willing to connect with their smartphones, and I was lucky enough to have some devices donated by a generous family and friends. We're meeting face-to-face on Google Meet every day. It's fun, exciting, and filled with learning. Once again, we're making it work. After tomorrow morning, all of our superheroes will have been assessed for ERLA, and next week they will all be STAR tested for reading and math. Our morning meetings are filled with dancing, months of the year, days of the week, and counting. We're reading about dinosaurs and asking amazing questions about new wonderings. This is the positive about distance learning. We're working. It is challenging. It's exhausting. My days mesh together. One day is nothing more than the next day. I'm working crazy amounts of hours, just like I did in the spring. But my kids are safe. My kids are doing well. They're being successful. And distance learning can work if we're given the tools and we're given the time. So I just wanted to share that in this moment, these are the good things. Sometimes we get caught up in all of the doom and gloom, as I said, but distance learning can be successful. And if we're given the opportunity to keep learning new things, how to make a Bitmoji classroom or math activity worksheets into games, and gamify something to make it more exciting for the kids online, then we can be successful and our kids can do well. They can make gains even when they're not in our physical buildings. So I just wanted to share that tonight and share that this is actually going well. It's not always perfect. It's definitely a challenge, but distance learning can work and it is working. I would also like to invite everyone that would like to join Superhero Headquarters. I would invite you to come to my class anytime and see what we're doing. We're not physically in the building, so you don't have to make an appointment. You can just say, Ms. Parkhurst, I want to come check it out, and I will happily send you our Google meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Next, we have Tracy Kavanaugh. Tracy, you're muted, just in case you're trying.
I was trying to find the unmute button. Good evening, all. The conversation around the Central Falls School District budget tonight was important. Equally as important is the conversation around charter schools. 38% of Central Falls students attend charter and state schools. This has caused a significant loss of state funding to our public school children. We cannot withstand the loss of millions should the plan to create a new mayoral academy come to fruition. Last spring, teachers, parents, and district leaders came together to advocate for more state funding for our schools. Any support of a parallel school district for Central Falls students undercuts our argument that the General Assembly needs to do more for our city schools district. I am asking that this board speak against the approval of the Excel Academy Charter School, as well as the expansion of Segway.
Tracy?
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Tracy. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were done. Thank you. All right, next we have Ashley Bro.
I'm done. You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. On a positive note, I have to say, since the last board meeting, communication has gotten so much better. So thank you to the district. Thank you to Dr. Toledo. My children are learning. They, even though it's challenging and struggling with a pre-K and a kindergartner, they are doing well. They are getting their IEP services. They are having Zoom meetings every week, making it a full day for school. So I just wanted to thank the district for that. I'm just concerned at this point going forward in the months of our cases rising so high in Rhode Island, what it's going to look like for this district. So thank you again, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ashley, for continuing to, and everyone who provided public comment today. It was a smaller group, but I appreciate that you all have been constant voices, even when things aren't going so great, and even when you're not feeling supported. We take very seriously the feedback that you bring, and certainly we love to hear that even though things maybe had been going poorly for some time, that today you decided to speak on some of the positives that have been going on, because we know that there are bright spots throughout our district, and that sometimes the things that aren't working so well can outweigh the positives. But thank you everyone for speaking up. So that ends our public comment, and moving on to the next item is the superintendent's comment.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna start sharing my screen again. Oh, Michael, if you can switch me back to host. We've been passing that back and forth. Thank you. Okay. So tonight, I just want to start. Many might not know this, but October is Principal Appreciation Month. And so I just wanted to take a moment to publicly thank this incredible group of leaders. To me, and symbolized by the fact that the superheroes, are lining the walls and bowing down to these guys. These are the real superheroes from my perspective. Obviously, every one of the 450 people that our team CFSD, I think of in this way, but just want to lift up these individuals, and I'm excited to be welcoming new faces to this group too. Recently, just moments ago, you approved an HR memo welcoming Mr. Mark Prince to the team, as well as Miss Lisa Zagarella. And so they have already just dove in. They haven't even started yet and have been asking to join meetings and be part of the team. But of course, the faces that are more familiar, I just want to give huge kudos. I am so humbled by the lengths that they each go to support their team, their staff, always with student learning at the forefront. And so thank you to each and every one of them. And a special shout out to my superhero, who doesn't like her photo to be used, but Miss Lynch, and not only led the district while I was on maternity leave, but then shortly after finally shifting back into her role for a moment, then took over as simultaneous assistant superintendent and acting principal of vets. And so she too gets kudos in this Principal Appreciation Month. But huge thanks to the school leaders of Central Falls. The next thing I wanted to share a bit of an update. We have had to ramp up a team that we've never had in the district before, and this has been our COVID response team and our quarantine team. So just wanted to share with the board and anyone in the community who's watching that we are taking this so very seriously. So Jay Midwood, who many of you know on the team, I've asked him and he graciously accepted to to really dedicate himself now as the quarantine lead. So he is the one who is our primary liaison with the Department of Health, as well as with every Central Falls team member, as they need to talk through and work through, okay, I woke up with a cough. Sometimes it's that, small of a thing, but just helping people determine how to schedule their testing, go through the contact tracing, and all of those related decisions, because we really feel committed to doing this with clarity and efficiency and most importantly, care. So just want to make sure everyone knows that this is a huge body of work. Also, all those people on the previous slide, not one of us has not spent considerable hours with the Department of Health in this last month. And so it's been a great collaboration, though, I do have to say. So I can pause. Does anyone have questions around sort of COVID or quarantine or anything like that? It feels like a heavy topic. So before I sort of fly through anything else.
Board members, any questions? I can't see everyone on the screen, so. I think,
go ahead.
I think, some of the questions that I've heard and things that I think about is just how does the quarantine process impact staffing? It may be something that you bring up, that you talk about later on. So we don't have to talk about it right now, but it's just, that's what I think about when I hear quarantine.
So we have definitely leaned into quarantining when in doubt, when there is either a lapse in the time before we hear from the Department of Health. Our default is to say we'd rather be safe than sorry, and feel really good about that decision, because so far we have had no spread within Central Falls schools. So no secondary cases, no tertiary cases. We are going to do everything we can to keep that up. But as a result, it means when we find out that someone is positive, we take the contact tracing, I would say, to the next level. Often the Department of Health says, you didn't actually need to have all those people at home, but until they tell us otherwise, we are asking people to do a self-quarantine until the Department of Health can make a ruling. And I think that's really helped. Staff know that whenever possible, if they can work from home because they are quarantined and feel well enough to do so, they continue to work. So we actually have not seen that have a significant impact on student learning and that sort of workflow. There are classrooms who have had to quarantine that do not have devices yet. So that does certainly impact the teaching and learning, but we're feeling very hopeful that in short order, we will have devices in everyone's hand. So that will become less of an issue soon. One shift worth noting just today, to continue on this positive path of no spread, even though the cases are rising. I made a management decision to reduce the number of team members in any workplace aligned with the governor's guidance. So any staff member who can fulfill all their responsibilities from home now has the ability to do so. So if you are you're a teacher who has all students who are distance learning, like right now at Calcutt in the high school, those teachers are able to work from home. Or there are examples where many of the elementary teachers went for a model where they had a group of their class had both families who chose in person and families who chose distance learning, but they grouped them in A and B accordingly. So there are some teachers who will now be coming in on group A days to teach kids in person, but teach from home on group B days when their students are virtual, to try to just reduce the number of people in any of our schools and workplaces at any given time. Any other COVID questions? Okay. The next thing I wanted to circle back to is back in August, we had started a discussion about the mascot and the logo that was used throughout the district, and it started from these two letters, both from some of our team members, but also from Lauren, who is at the Tamaqua Museum, and so that started a discussion. And I just wanted to share that even though we haven't moved to any sort of formal resolution from the board or any formal process yet, that we have started the education piece. And so we actually had some professional learning occur just this past Monday, where the high school team was really digging into work around why the shifts align with an anti-racist focus. And so we're hoping to then use the same professional learning experience in each of the schools in the weeks ahead as really a kickoff and an entry point for a year-long, likely multi-year long, but certainly a commitment in all of our statewide PD days this year to have professional learning with an anti-racist focus. But wanted to share that even without the formal process of deciding or having a resolution, that you can already start to see the beautiful CF showing up without the native imagery. And so whether it's the brand new fields that we're seeing or the jerseys on some of our student athletes, you can see that people, even without the formal process, have started to remove that native imagery. The next update I wanted to share is just around buildings and facilities. Vice Chair Grace had asked that this become a regular update, so I want to make sure to follow through on that. One thing that had been requested after the last meeting was there was a lot of public interest in making sure there was transparency for our school building report, so wanted to make sure everyone knows that those can be found on our district website. We're also excited, and there was a reference to some of this in Carrie's update, but both through some of our own funds, but also funds that the state has brought to us, we're going to be able to keep doing additional HVAC and HEPA filter improvements to just continually make the schools safer and safer. Again, we already meet the safe threshold, but we want to just keep going above and beyond. And then in very exciting news, just this morning, we resubmitted our stage 2 application for $7.5 million of funding for school improvements that would occur over the next 4 years. So most of these improvements will not be visible. So I do want to call out, there will be boiler replacements and roof replacements and things that, you know, aren't shiny and always seen, but we're excited to get these really important elements in a new and functioning way for our schools and therefore for our students and team. Any question on buildings? One thing worth noting, the school building committee worked very hard to submit this stage 2. We do still hope to have conversations of a much larger stage 2 submittal in the years ahead. So doing this does not mean that we can't do any other projects for the next 4 years. But as we spoke to Ride about some of the larger projects that have been envisioned, like a major renovation to Central Falls High School and things like that, that are more in the tune of 40, 80, 100, 200 million. They worked with us to say, you know, before we can talk about some of those projects, we got to get some of these basics in order. So we think this is a really important step, not just for these improvements, but for longer term improvements for our buildings. An update on enrollment, familiar slides that can remind you of last year when things were not as exciting as this year perhaps, or we didn't realize it then, would do anything for a little status quo. But so this slide is just to break down our enrollment. You'll see we are up quite a few students from even the update 3 weeks ago at the October 1st meeting. A lot of that we believe is due to students coming through the registration process, and just a little bit of a holdup there at the beginning of the year, especially because the registration team is taking fewer appointments at a time to adhere to social distancing and all that. But we now are at 2,800 students. Some shifts and updates in terms of how many of our students are learning in person versus distance. And so just wanted to share an update again 3 weeks later. At this point, we have 23% of our students are in person, up from 17% a few weeks ago. And the most important thing though, and I know what caused, rightfully so, a lot of strong reactions at the last board meeting around students who were distance learning without a device. On the first of the month, that was at 36% of our students were distance learning without a device. I got a little too ahead of myself when we heard about a donation and changed it to 0. We still have some distribution to do, but we are very close and have reason to believe by next week, but certainly by the end of the month, we should be at 0 students who are distance learning without a device. So a lot of progress in the last 3 weeks, but as of today, every 4th to 12th grader has a device. Any questions on some of these shifts? And then there was a request to know how many students were on each wait list. So that number in parentheses next to in person represents students still on a wait list to come in person. We spoke a little bit about this when we looked at the HR memo, but just an overall staffing update. We are really pleased with the progress that we've made in terms of hiring high quality team members in the last few weeks. We do still have a few more hires to make. So there's an art teacher that would be shared by Captain Hunt and Raices, a reading specialist, a bilingual reading specialist at Raices, a school psychologist at Ella Risk, a 4th grade role at Veterans, a special education support teacher at Calcut. I believe as of today, though the person might not even know it yet, we have someone who will be awarded that special ed support for multilingual learners at the high school. And probably by tomorrow, the 2 more nurses will be down to 1. So again, it's a moving target that even with Google Slides, sometimes some of the slides change from the time that I left CF to get home to do the meeting. So that's how ongoing and live these updates are. And then a board member had requested just more information on the accommodations that staff have, not the accommodations that they received, but how many of our staff are receiving accommodations and what the impact is to running our 6 schools. And so this chart summarizes by school in the columns, and then also by sort of affiliation, whether they're a member of the Central Falls Teachers Union, Council 94 Union, or non-union in the rows across. And then in the rows, it's further broken down by whether the accommodation is connected to a 504, meaning a medical reason, or a family situation, including education related with children who might be quarantined or home doing distance learning themselves. So you can see that overall there are 51 of our 450 team members who currently do have accommodations. And then you can see it broken down by totals by school, but also by category and affiliation. Any questions on that? A lot of numbers. Okay. And then just wanted to close out with, oops, go back one. Just some visuals of what teaching and learning looks like in this very unique school year. I had the pleasure of joining a 9th grade English class earlier this week that was being co-taught by Miss Ruggieri and Miss Price. And it was really neat. I actually was telling the students I want to pick up the book that they were reading to finish it because I was so engaged in the lesson, but just was impressed by how teachers are getting creative and really working so hard to ensure students are engaged and learning. And just want to give a huge shout out to our teachers who are doing incredible work in such a new context. Even from the spring, it's still a huge shift because we're doing so much more synchronous learning. So thank you to all of our teachers. And that is the end of my update. Any questions?
Any questions for the superintendent? Comments? You know, I really wanted to just take a moment to thank you, superintendent, and all of the individuals, especially Assistant Principal Jamie Hill, who not only brought to this board's attention the need to really address the Native imagery that we've identified with as a district, and that despite the board not sort of formally taking action via a resolution, I'm glad to see that discussion has sparked work despite a lack of a formal demand by this board, right? And what it says to me is that this work is important to the district. It's important to the people who work here. And my heart is very happy to see what has happened, what's taken place so far. What I would love to see is a way for this board to play a role. You know, there are things that this board needs to learn and unlearn, right? We're all learning in this environment, and we all have room to grow. And so without it needing to be, you know, sort of us inviting ourselves into your PDs or anything like that, though we'd love to join if it's possible. It could even be something where we invite some of the speakers that you all maybe have had, or just organize something separately where we bring to a future board meeting where we have a deeper discussion that's tied to what the district is already doing.
Yeah.
Just so that we keep it consistent, right? That it's something that's not just a conversation that the board had and then we put it on the district to sort of implement, but that we are also as a board taking responsibility in what we want to see in the removal of the Native imagery and what that means for our district in terms of its identity. So I just wanted to share that. My other question is, and you may have answered this, superintendent, so bear with me. So we've seen enrollment decline, and we know that has to do with, you know, kids either leaving the district or kids going to charter schools, whatever it may be. Are there students that don't fit into any of those categories and we just haven't gotten in touch with, or that we haven't been able to get in touch with, who we've just sort of lost, that have sort of gotten out of our radar, and we just don't know, if that makes sense?
I would not believe that's the case, because someone would need
Okay.
to like unenroll. And so I want to make sure I'm understanding the question. Like students who were part of the 3,000 last year, but are not part of the group that went to, say, expansions in a charter school.
Mm-hmm. Like, are there kids on our rosters now who we are just not reaching?
Yes.
Okay.
But we just keep trying new approaches. I think that we actually have been speaking about this quite a bit, that we want to develop teams. So right now the structure each school has one homeschool liaison, but given the nature of the pandemic, and schools did this in the spring, sort of built out that team with people who were in roles that might not have the same responsibilities in the context of a distance learning situation. So perhaps, you know, a teaching assistant who can support with the class, but also can do some of those calls home and figure out what's going on. So we're trying to work with our current team to think about how do we enhance our outreach to families and even do more home visits, which I know is tricky in the time of COVID. We're not saying, you know, go into someone's home necessarily, but, you know, can we go and meet with families, go to them and have conversations about what we could be doing differently to support their child's engagement in school. So yes, there are students who are not engaging consistently in the current learning context, but those students are still on the roster. So they would still appear in that 2,800. And do you happen to know how many students might fall into a category of like have actually left the district?
We get a lot of parents calling us saying that they've sent their kids to live with a relative because they're working and they don't feel comfortable. So then they would be unenrolled because they should be in another district. We're still trying to get a hold of that number because it's hard to get in touch with people. A lot of people are working. They can't get phone calls during the day. I would say probably maybe 10% at each school that they're still trying to get outreach to.
Mhm.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I was just thinking about you know, it's sort of a different category. So just wanted to get a sense for what that number looked like. Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for the superintendent? All right, looking at my agenda, board comment? Any board comment from anyone? Seeing none, and then we will not be going into executive session tonight. So that gets us to the end of our meeting. It was short and sweet, but we felt it was important for us to sort of get updates as small as they might be. I think it's helpful for us to continue to stay informed, just given the circumstances. So I really appreciate everyone making the time to put the presentation together, to provide us updates, and also to board members who were able to join. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you at the next meeting on November 5th. Oh, actually, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Andrew, seconded
Second.
by Bryant and Ugo. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Take
night.
care. Stay
Good
safe.
night.
Bye.